Hi, and welcome to my sewing room. Today I'm showing off the results for my mini bolt challenge for March. If you're just joining me, this year I had challenged myself to use up some of my stash, and to help me do that, I came up with a mini bolt challenge. I have a lot of mini bolts on my shelves that are usually from about 1 to 3 yards of fabric, and I really want to start using those up. And each month I show you 3 bolts of fabric, and I let you all vote on which one you want me to use for that month. I had a good time playing with the winner for last month, but I will admit in the beginning I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. But eventually I came up with a plan and I was able to make 3 projects and add some more 9 patches to my collection. In this video, I'll walk you through my thought process on each project and how each one came about. And be sure to stay to the end where I'll show you 3 more mini bolts and you can pick which one you want me to work with in April. So let's get to it. It was a tight race between the florals and the butterflies last month, but as you can see behind me, the florals won out on the vote. I got busy right away and I rolled it out to see how much yardage I had to play with. There was 1 yard on the mini bolt. I wasn't really sure what to do with 1 yard. My first thought for busy prints or novelty prints is to use them in a border, but I really wanted to use some of this inside the quilt as well, and I didn't have enough for something to go inside and use as a border. So I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. It's also a directional print, which added to the mix of my decisions. I had to decide if I wanted all the flowers to go right side up, or if it was okay to just sew them in any direction, however they landed. My brain was still leaning towards all in the same direction, but I still wasn't sure. So I decided I would switch directions and just start pulling fabrics to help me with my creativity. Sometimes I feel it's easier to start the design process when I have my main print and a couple other colors to go with it. It gets my creative juices flowing. I pulled out some fabric colors that were in the main print, and I started with a green, and then I added some pinks. The main print had several shades of pink, and these all could have worked well, but I really liked the darker pink, more of a purplish pink. I pulled more green and some yellows. I was leaning more towards a light yellow, but I decided to try a few more values to figure out which one blended better. For the green, I played around with several fabrics. I really wanted a more yellow-green shade and had the perfect dot fabric. I decided it was time I better come up with a pattern so I could make sure I had enough fabric for anything that I wanted to make. I set up the computer and opened up EQ, but I was stumped at where I should start. But then I got a text message, and in it was a photo of a quilt that my aunt had just made. It was a quarter log cabin quilt. She had been playing along with Pat Sloan's Block a Day Sew Along, and her quilt was beautiful, and it sparked an idea. Based on the coloring and a little bit of inspiration from my aunt, I came up with a pattern. And this is my main block. I chose to have my main quilt start out with a nice large square, and I flanked it on the top and the bottom with some logs similar to a log cabin and very similar to the quarter square log cabin. But then I decided to see what it would look like if I angled off those logs and put in a yellow triangle, and I loved how it looked. I wanted to have some little pinwheels coming together where the cornerstones meet in the sashing, so I needed to add a little something to my block. So that got me the last outer border of my block. And that edge, when you mix it with the cornerstones, gives me a fun little pinwheel. This quilt layout added some blue and another light yellow for the sashing. I printed out my yardage sheet and I took it to my fabrics. With my pattern designed and knowing how much yardage I needed, I could adjust my fabric choices. This one I really liked, but I'm going to need 1.5 yards, and I didn't have enough. This one might work. Let me check. Oh yeah, we're good. So I have enough of this one. I liked this one. I was kind of a little worried about all the white in it. I didn't want to have like a whole section of cut. If I cut it here, then the white. So I decided not to use that one. But this still kind of has the purple in it. I mean, the stars are kind of purple. So I was going to go with that one. And I pulled this one out to test it, but this one has more purplish. So I'll put this back and then I'll put this back. And when I was pulling fabrics, I didn't pull any blue at all. And then as I was designing this, I saw that this teal was poking out. So I'll probably go with this. I should have enough here because all I need is for these little tiny triangles. So this should be plenty. Now I need a green. This here says I need 1/2 yard and I don't have enough. So I'm going to have to go through my stash and find one that has 1/2 yard. It's only 11 inches. So I have to go back and find a different green. Now for the pink, I'd pick this, but I'm thinking that might be a little too light. So I've decided I'm going to try this one. I'll put this one back. Now for my yellows, I may have to go shopping. It's hard to see in the quilt picture here, but the actual block is a darker yellow and the sashing is just a little bit lighter to give it just a little bit interesting look to it. And I don't have a lot of light yellow. I mean, these are my bright. I need more of a pastel. I'm thinking I'll use this as my dark and I need to go shopping and find a lighter yellow. Here's what I got so far. I have my dark pink, my light pink. I need to find another green and then I have a blue and then my main print. I'm gonna start cutting some of this up. I have some templates for my odd angles here. I could have done half square triangles here, but I didn't want to do that. So I printed templates. So I'm gonna cut those out and I'll get started on a little bit of that. Okay, here's my main print. Got the bottom cleaned up and I need to cut 6.5 inch strips for my blocks. So I'm going to break out my big ruler and cut 6.5. I only need 14 and I can get 6 from each row. So this is what I'm going to have left, 17 inches. So I'll need to come up with another project. Next I'm going to get out this ruler. This is an old ruler. It's the ruler I started with. So it's 27 years old. I mean, it's kind of wearing on the edges, but it's a perfect size. I love it. It's easy to read. I mean, I got my tape on it for other projects. I'm going to use that to cut my 6.5 inch blocks. When I started quilting, this was the only ruler I had. I used it to cut everything. Even my yardage, I would slide it down as I needed to. Then as I got more into it, I got a bigger ruler and then another ruler and specialty rulers. And I mean, my ruler collection has grown over time. This one is still one of my favorites. 6.5 by 13. Now I have 16. I just need to cut out the logs that go around it. Let me do that. This is my extras. So now I got to come up with another project to finish up this. So while I'm working on that, I'll think on this. For my template E and F, they're the same for pink and green. I'll need 16 of each E and 16 of each F. And I know these are 2 inches, so I cut my strips at 2 inches. I'm more concerned about this angle and the actual length I need. So that's why I'm going to use this template. That'll help save me some fabric, and it won't leave me with any leftover triangles if I put a square on it, sew it, and fold it over and trim it off. So I'm going to use these. All right, so I'm going to see how many E's I can get off of one strip. Uh-oh. Okay, I made a mistake. Which I'm glad I did this. Instead, I cut them all. So I have these folded together, which is a no-no because now I have mirror images, which I don't want. I don't want any mirror images. All right, so when I cut these, I want to open them all up. So now I have 2 that I don't need. Okay, so this is a no good. That one's good. That one's good. These 2, I'll have to do something else with those. So let me open these up and start again. I can still cut 4 at a time. Okay, let's try this again. When I get my green print, I'll cut it out with those same templates. Next up is my yellow shapes. I need 64 of these, 4 for each block, and I should be able to get 4 per strip. So I cut 8 strips. And I'm going to change out my blade because I keep getting a nick stuck. So I have these blades, I just never put it in, so I'm going to take the time to do that. And then this is a leftover icebreakers, perfect for all my dull needles, dull pins, and dull rotary blades. I'll slide that in there. It's almost full. When it's full, I can just chuck it. I'll tape it up, chuck it like this, and then nobody will get hurt in the trash. So everything should cut better now. No more snags. And these are not mirror images, so I can fold 2 together and just cut away. Since I have 4 together, that gives me 4. That's enough for 1 block. So I need 16 piles to get enough for every block. I have 16 blocks. Okay, I got my side pieces for my block. Now I'm going to cut this corner piece. This is template G. And if I line it up with my easy angle ruler, I need to cut a 3.5 inch strip. I think I'm going to cut them 3 3/4, and I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. That way when I sew them here and fold them over, I can trim them up and have a perfect corner triangle. And I need 2 for each block, so that's 32. So let me cut those. So I only needed 2 strips. And I got my triangles. This one I needed 8 strips. The pink I needed 5 strips. Green I'll need 5 strips at 2 inches. And I am done with this yellow. Next I want to work on the blue. These little blue pieces. That is template number C. Again, I'm going to get out my easy angle ruler and I want to cut 2 inches. If you don't have an easy angle rule and you need to cut half square triangles, you need to cut a strip that's 2 7/8 inches. And then cut squares and then cut them in half. Or you can cut them in 3 inches, cut squares, cut them in half, and then trim them down. But I'm gonna use this easy angle ruler. It usually does pretty good for me. These I'm a little worried about trimming down because I need to fit into another unit. So I'm gonna be very precise with my piecing. I need 64. I need 4 for each block. I have 2 rows together, folded in half. Every time I cut, I'll have enough for 1 block. I'll do the same for the pink. They use the same template. Again, I need 64. So 4 sets of 16. Right, and those will get sewn to that. Next up, I need these bigger triangles. This row measures 1.5 inches finished in the quilt, so I know I need a 2-inch strip. I may be able to use the leftovers of this. And I'm going to use my flying geese ruler, which measures perfect. Because this will be 1.5 inch finish, so I'll line it up with that, but I need a 2-inch strip. Next, I'm going to cut the borders. So I want this to be the border and the binding. So I'm going to cut them at 5 inches, which is a little bigger than the picture, but I need 6. Now I'm going to cut my binding. There's one more thing I need. I need these little center cornerstones. I need 9. They finish at 1.5, same as the sashing. So I will cut them from this leftover 2-inch strip I had. Look at me using up almost all this pink. I have everything cut out except for the green fabric and the lighter yellow sashing. Unfortunately, the block builds on the green, so I gotta sew that next. I can't really start the main block until I get this green because it all builds off of that. But I can start with these corner pieces. I can make these little corner units. I have a little bit of time today. I'll sew a little bit today and then go shopping. Maybe Hobby Lobby will have a lighter yellow and a green that are soft. I'll check there first. If not, I'll have to go maybe Monday or Tuesday down to the beach and to the quilt shop. I went shopping, but Hobby Lobby didn't have anything I like, so I went to the quilt shop and I found these two. I had to pay full price for these. I haven't done that in forever. I can usually find what I need in the sale bin, so this hurt just a little bit because it was kind of expensive. But they were the perfect shades I needed, so I went ahead and got them. I had everything tucked in my project bag waiting on the green. So I'll cut the green first. I do not want mirror images, so I need to open these up. From the yellow, I need lots of 2-inch strips. And I'm going to get out my big ruler. I'm going to iron these. While the iron heats up, I'm going to cut 6 more for my inner border. Alright, this will be my inner border. These are my last 2 sashing strips. And these are leftovers. This is my project bag. I made it as an Island Boutique Ambassador Challenge project 1 month. The pattern is a by any pattern, and it's got see-through mesh, and it held my whole project so far. I'm going to take some stuff out and lay out my blocks. So here's what one block will look like. So I'm going to have an E here, and an E here, and then an F here, and an F here, and then I'm going to have a G here, G here, and then B's are going to go all the way around, and then I'm going to top it off with a corner piece. I already sewed these while I was waiting for time to go down into town. I had to go down to the beach to go to the fabric store there. And that will be my sashing, a nice light yellow. Ooh, I'm liking it very much. Let me piece it together and see what it will look like. All shrunk up. This is where I'm at now. I cut these triangles big because sometimes my triangles get wonky and I didn't want to have a weird shape halfway through. So I made them a little bit bigger and I'm going to trim them down. So at this point, the block should be 9.5 inches because this is 6. These will be 1.5. So add 3 inches and then add your seam allowance from 9.5. And there's the first block. I just need 15 more. I like to make one sample block, especially if it's a new quilt. And once that goes good, I stack everything up and then I get ready for chain piecing. This quilt is made up of 16 blocks in 4 rows of 4. They finish at 12 inches. And if you're interested in making one of your own, I'll have a link in the description below for templates that you can use to make your own. And the blocks are set in groups of 4 and are rotated to create the look of 4 flowers. They are spaced with 2-inch sashing and cornerstones. I laid out my rows on my design wall to make sure everything stayed in the right order, and I sewed my rows, and then I sewed my sashing rows, and I sewed all those together and I had my inner top. All I had to do left was add the inner border and then the outer border, and my top was finished. Once the top was complete, it was on to make the backing. Earlier in the month, I found a panel in my catch-all bin. I must have bought it at the same time that I bought this main print because the flowers in the panel and the print are identical. But after looking at it, I can figure out why I put it in that catch-all bin. Whoever cut it didn't cut enough of the background image for me to be able to cut enough all the way around the rectangle without trimming off some of those fancy borders. That left me short some rectangles, so I wasn't able to do my original plan with it, so I put it in the catch-all bin and I thought, well, I'll just do something with it later. So here it is now, later, and I'm going to use it on the back of this quilt. And it's perfect because it matches the front. The green fabric that I paired it with is another fabric that I've had for a really long time. I initially bought this one when I was going to make a mermaid costume for Halloween, but right after I bought it, my daughter decided that she didn't want to be a mermaid anymore. She wanted to be something else. So I had this extra fabric and I wasn't sure what to do with it. I thought, well, I'll use it for something else. Well, here it is, finally, something else. It's a nice shade of green. It goes perfect with these colors. It's a nice pastel. So I split it in half and I put the panel right in the middle. Then I added some pink strips on the side to make everything fit, and some blue strips above and below the panel. I sewed all those together and then I had my back. Apparently, Avi wasn't too pleased with my backing choices. Or perhaps he just wanted to make a soft spot to lay. For the quilting on this one, I stuck with my favorite design. A floral, swirly, all over meander. I'm so used to doing that one, it just quilts up so fast. With the binding attached, I was finished with quilt number 1. Now this is a big quilt, but I only used a little more than half a yard of the main fabric, and I still had 17 inches left. So I had to come up with something else to use up the rest of the fabric, because part of the challenge is to use all the fabric down to the very last scrap. I laid out my scraps, but I still wasn't sure what to do with the big piece. But I did have a smaller 6.5 inch strip that was looking the right size for a zipper pouch. First, I decided I better come up with a plan for the big piece in case I needed any extra smaller pieces to cut and go with it. So I went back to designing to figure out how I could use up those last 17 inches in another quilt. After some measuring and feeling around, I decided I would play with 4 patches. I could get 12 3.5 inch squares from the width of the fabric, with very little left over. And I had enough to cut 4 strips. That would give me enough for 24 4 patches with just a few inches left over. And I had just enough left to cut a 2.5 inch strip so I could make 2 inch cornerstones. But I could only get 17 cornerstones out of that strip. And I needed 18 for the plan that I was thinking of. So I cut my last one out of one of those smaller bits and got my 18 cornerstones. This left my larger 6.5 strip still intact, so I was able to make my zipper pouch. And I went ahead and I did that first. It's a cute little pouch that measures about 5 by 7 and has some nice little box corners. And it turned out super cute. I used a fun, shiny silver zipper, and on the inside I put nice yellow fabric. I like the inside of my bags to use light fabric because sometimes it's dark in there and the light fabric helps me be able to see things. Once I was done with the zipper pouch, it was on to quilt number 2.
I'm trying to figure out what I want to pair in the 4 patch. I like this teal color, but I don't know if these flowers will be too busy. And this isn't quite the right shade of blue that I want. This is going to be the border, possibly sashing, and an inner border. I may flip-flop those two.
The yellows that I had just seemed too bright, and I didn't buy enough of the light yellow fabric. I had a green that would work, and this was going to be the backup choice for my main quilt if I couldn't find another green that I liked at the store. So I knew it would work with the main fabric print, but I wasn't sure if I wanted that much green in my quilt. But then I remembered my baby chain quilt, and I used pink and this same green, and it turned out great. So I went ahead and cut out the green. My next issue was what fabric should I pair with the main fabric to finish up my 4 patches. I had narrowed it down to 2 blues, a more softer pastel blue and a bright in-your-face blue with lots of little tiny flowers in it. I couldn't decide, so I asked a few family members which color combo they liked best, and the votes were split. This means I probably would have been fine going either way, but I decided to go with the brighter blue with the little tiny flowers in it. And I'm glad I did. I love it. This quilt is made up of 4 patches, and they're grouped in sets of 4, similar to my main quilt here. They are surrounded by sashing and cornerstones. The cornerstones alternate between the main print and a pink. So a main print cornerstone would go next to the main print in the 4 patch, and that created a nice chain throughout the quilt. I put the pink cornerstones in the middle of the chains next to the blue print in the 4 patches, so they kind of like float there in the middle. I sewed it the same way as this one. I put it up on the design wall and I rotated all my 4 patches to make sure they're going the right way. And then I sewed my row with sashings, and then I sewed my sashing row, and I sewed everything together. I added a really thin inner border of yellow just to give it a nice pop of yellow and help bring out some of these yellows in the main print. And then another pink border for this one as well. This top makes me think of an Easter basket. It has all the fun colors of Easter, so I decided to put an Easter egg print on the back. It wasn't quite wide enough to go the whole width of the quilt, so I split it off center and put a green strip right down the middle. I quilted this one with a pastel green thread, and I did some swirls and lines from one end to the other. I thought I would switch it up from the swirly meander that I usually do. This quilt method is beginner friendly. You don't have to worry about getting stuck in a corner or wonder where you're going to go next. You just go from one end of the quilt to the next. I made a swirly line from one end to the other, and then I followed it back with a wavy line to the other side. Then I just repeated that. A swirly line, and then a wavy line. And I did that all the way down to the end of the quilt. The only thing that you really want to worry about is to make sure that your line doesn't get crooked. And if you follow along the seams of your quilt, you kind of eyeball and keep your line straight. That way you don't end up at the bottom with 6 inches left to quilt, and on the other side only 2. Now I quilted this on my long arm, but this is a good one to use on a domestic sewing machine as well, because you can just go straight, flip it around, and then come right back. This is also good because you can start in the middle and work your way out. And that's how you quilt on a domestic machine, on the middle and work your way out. With the quilting and the binding done, Quilt 2 was ready for a photo shoot. With 2 quilts and a pouch, I was left over with 2 small bits of scraps. So I used those and I made me some more 9 patches to go with my collection. Once I get enough 9 patches, I'll put all those together and make a quilt. So there you have it. 3 projects and some 9 patches, all inspired by 1 yard of fabric. March was a fun month with lots of spring colors, but for April, I'm going to go a different route for my mini bolt challenge. Now the projects I make in April, I'm going to show off at the end of the month, so they'll be ready for May. So I decided to pick bolts that have a May theme. Number 1, April showers bring May flowers. So I pulled out this print. It has a blue background with some pretty florals on top of it. For the second one, May is my birthday month, and the birthstone for May is emerald. So I went to my green mini bolts and I pulled out this green. I'm not quite sure how to describe this one other than green speckled color burst fabric. And for number 3, it's mixed in with 2 things. Since May is my birthday month, I feel like May is my month, and my favorite color is red. So I went to my red shelf. May is also Memorial Day, so on my red shelf, I had this patriotic print, and I decided to pull that one in honor of Memorial Day and my favorite color. So these are the 3 bolts to choose from. Which one would you like to see used up all the way down to the last scrap? To vote, just leave a comment below and let me know which one you like. Number 1, 2, or 3. On April 5th, I'll tally all the votes, and whichever one is the winner, that's the bolt that I'll use during April. And check back at the end of April to see which one won and what I made with that entire bolt. Thanks so much for watching and following along. And until next time, happy sewing!